Now, if you've got a copy of PhatPhish, you might have noticed that the list of root notes up in the top left-hand corner there, they don't always appear in sequential order depending on how you've got the options set up. If you go to the options dialog, you can either have the root note list in sequential order or circle of fifths order. And I thought what I'd do in this video is talk a little bit about the circle of fifths and key signatures and so on. Circle of fifths, it's just a device. It's useful to get your head around because it helps you understand the different keys and where key signatures come from. Okay, so we'll start off. Let's take a look at the key of C major. Now, as you can see, we're looking at the notes there in the key of C major. No sharps, no flats. Yeah, none of the note names are accented at all. Now, if you've got PhatPhish set up so the root notes are in circle of fifths order, and you see the next root note in the list is G, and G is a perfect fifth away from C, so effectively what we're doing is we're moving around in intervals of a perfect fifth. Now, if we take a look at the notes in the key in the G major scale, you see very similar to the ones that we had in C major, but rather than an F natural, we've got an F sharp. Okay, so let's just take a look at what we've done. Effectively, what we've done is we've taken the notes of C major, rearranged them off the fifth degree, and added an accent to a sharp sign to the seventh degree of the scale, like this. Now, what we can do now is we can start filling in some segments on the circle of fifths. So let's start off with a circle, and we'll add in C, representing the C major scale, and then in the outer part of the circle we annotate how many sharp or flat note names there are in the scale. In case of C, there aren't any, but if we go around by one segment to G, which is a fifth away, we'll get one sharp, which is the F sharp. Okay. So we'll go back to PhatPhish now and change the root note, go up from G up an interval of a perfect fifth to D. Take a look at the notes in the D major scale. What we've got here is interesting. It's the same notes that we had in the key of G major before, but rather than a C natural, we've got a C sharp. That F sharp from G major is still there, but we've also got a C sharp in there. So what we've done, same thing again, is by taking the notes from the previous key, rearranging them from the fifth degree, and we've added a sharp sign to the seventh note in the scale. And if we put that into our circle of fifths, so now we can see we've got C with no accented note names in the key, G major, which has one accented note in the key, F sharp, and D major, which has two accented note names in the key, F sharp and also C sharp. Now, what we can do is we can step through all of the major scales there and take a look at what happens every time we move through by an interval of a perfect fifth with the root note. What happens is we actually add another accented note to the key each time we move the root note around. Now, so far we've been going around the circle clockwise, taking the root note up an interval of a perfect fifth each time. Now, you might also hear the circle of fifths referred to as the circle of fourths, or the cycle of fourths. Basically the same thing, but what happens is you can view the circle of fifths as either you're stepping around clockwise in an interval of a fifth, or you're stepping anti-clockwise by an interval of a perfect fourth. Let's try that now. We'll just start off on C again, and rather than taking the root note up an interval of a perfect fifth, we'll move up an interval of a perfect fourth. Now, if we go from C up an interval of a perfect fourth, we get an F. Now if we take a look at the note names in the key of F major, you should see they're very similar to the note names in the key of C major, but we have got another one of those notes which has been accented. Rather than a B, we've got a B flat. So what we can say is if we take the notes of a major scale, rearrange them off the 4th degree, and add a flat to the note name, add a flat sign to the note name of the 4th note in the scale, we end up with another major scale. So let's have a look at that in the circle of fifths. We'll start off with C with no accented notes in the note names in the key, go up a perfect 4th to F, and F major has one flat named note in it, which is B flat. We can repeat that. Take the notes of F major, 4th degree of F major is B flat, so if we look at the notes of B flat major, again very similar, but we've got two flat note names in there now. In the key of B flat major, we've got the B flat that we had from F major, but there's also an E flat in there as well. So you can repeat this exercise going clockwise up an interval of a perfect fifth each time, take all the notes from the previous scale and add a sharp sign to the 7th degree, or going anti-clockwise around the circle up an interval of a perfect 4th each time, take all the notes from the previous scale, rearrange on the 4th degree, and add a flat sign to the 4th degree of the new scale. So that gives us our completed circle of fifths. Now, as you know, each major scale has a relative natural minor, so what we can do is we can split that up, and as well as showing the major scales, we can add in some sections there to show us the relative natural minors. Now the important thing to remember here is we're talking about the note names. So if we're talking about minor scales, yeah, the minor scale has a flat 3, it has a flat 6, it has a flat 7 in the formula for the scale. What we're talking about specifically here though is the names of the notes within it. But what's interesting about this, looking at the circle of fifths, is that you can see that each key, each major key, each relative natural minor, has a distinct number of sharp note names or flat note names within it. And this allows us to be able to identify keys quite easily by key signature. Now what a key signature is basically something that you get in traditional music notation, where because if you're playing in a particular key, say for argument's sake you're playing in the key of G major, the F note generally is going to be an F sharp. So what we can do in the key signature is mark the F line of the stave with a sharp, so we know that every time we see a dot on that line it means F sharp, not F. And by looking at the key signature, if we see a key signature like this that only has one sharp sign on it, we know that we're playing in the key of G major, because G major is the key that only has one sharp sign in it. And as you step around the circle of fifths, each one of these keys has its own unique key signature. So that's a useful way, just by looking at a piece of written music, by looking at the start of the stave, looking at the number of sharps or flats in the key signature, you should know what key you're playing in. Okay, so there's an overview of the circle of fifths, and hopefully that's explained what it is and how we can use it to help us identify, what key we're playing in, the relationship between keys and key signatures. As always, if you've got any questions on this, please feel free to ask them in the comments section on YouTube, or post them on the PhatPhish page on Facebook, or you're more than welcome to get in touch with me direct by email or private message or whatever, and I'll try and get back to you. Hope you found that useful, and I'll catch up with you hopefully in another video sometime soon. Bye for now.